On my wedding day, my fiancé Simon, who had been missing for half a month, showed up holding our maid's daughter Vivian's hand and asked to break off our engagement. I found it funny. You were never supposed to be my groom, so what engagement is there to call off? Simon probably didn't know yet that he was switched at birth and wasn't the wealthy young duke he thought he was. Instead, my intended groom had been changed to the real young master who recently returned, William. On my wedding day, the venue was packed, bustling with guests. Suddenly, the church doors flew open, and there stood Simon, my missing fiancé. He walked in hand with Vivian, and Vivian was wearing a wedding dress too. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to them. With a look of conviction like a soldier going to battle, Simon announced loudly to the guests, "Everyone, Vivian and I truly love each other, so I can't go through with today's wedding." Then, he looked at me. "Rose, I'm sorry, but I only want to marry Vivian. Please break off our engagement and give the bride's position to her." Vivian had this pitiful look of defiance against an evil force. "Miss Rose, don't blame Simon. If you must blame someone, blame me," Simon said sternly. "True love isn't wrong." I interrupted with a chuckle. "Are you done? You were never my groom in the first place, so what engagement are you breaking off?" Simon looked dumbfounded. "What do you mean?" William stepped up, standing in front of me, and said coldly, "What Rose means is, this is our wedding. Unimportant people can kindly leave." Who are you?" I held on to William's arm. "He's my real groom, the genuine wealthy duke." "Stop deluding yourself." Vivian meekly questioned, "What wealthy duke? I thought Simon was the only one." Simon looked to his parents for confirmation. "Mom, Dad?" Simon's foster mom, Alice, casually said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. You're not our biological son, you were switched at birth." Simon's foster dad, Martin, looked at him with disdain. "Both of you, get out. Stop making fools of yourselves here and ruining my precious son's big day with Rose. Half a month ago, Simon was my fiancé. But Alice found out he was switched at birth, meaning they had been raising someone else's son all these years. At that time, Simon was busy fooling around with Vivian and went missing. No one could reach him. Alice and Martin were already so disappointed in him. When they discovered Simon wasn't their biological child, they decided to let him fend for himself. So quietly, my arranged marriage partner was changed to the real wealthy duke, William. William didn't change his name, and had the same last name as his mom, Alice. As the daughter of a well-known business family, my family was naturally allied with William's. There was no way I would marry Simon, who was just a phony young master. We all thought Simon would keep hiding until the wedding was over. Who would have thought he'd show up on the wedding day, still thinking he was the eldest son of the Simon family and the groom for today? Even thinking Vivian in a wedding dress could replace me and complete the wedding. What a ridiculous fantasy. Simon was too shocked to believe what he heard. He turned to look at the wedding posters around, seeing me with William, the perfect couple, nowhere involving him at all. Simon and Vivian are a bizarre pair, crashing a wedding that wasn't theirs just to make their presence known. Vivian even wore a wedding dress, thinking she could suddenly become someone important. What a laugh. The guests were whispering non-stop. Vivian clutched her wedding dress, her face turning beet red with embarrassment. William signaled the security, "Take them out. This is my big day, my stage. I wouldn't allow anyone like him to ruin it." I continued my wedding gloriously. As I stood on stage exchanging rings with William, I glanced at Simon whispering to Vivian in the distance, and a smile tugged at my lips. I'm incredibly relieved my fiancé was switched. Even though William and I had clashed on the debate team back in college. Honestly, William outshines Simon in every way, looks, demeanor, and career. Replacing a worthless fiancé who was tangled with a mistress with a mature, charming, handsome man, why would I refuse that? Yet, I felt a familiar vibe from the way Vivian looked at William while nestled in Simon's arms. That hidden ambition under her pitiful demeanor, like a tide ready to spill over. When the maid Anna brought Vivian to our house, she acted timid, sweet, and tagged along, wanting to be best friends. I didn't mind having another friend, so I let her come and go as she pleased. Simon lived next door and would often come over to see me. Somehow, Vivian got acquainted with him, calling him Dear Simon, which delighted him. Even though Vivian knew Simon wasn't that great in studies, she would still shyly ask for his help with practice questions when he came over. Simon, I don't quite get this question, could you explain it to me? When I was 16, Vivian took my room key from Anna when I wasn't home to sneak in and try on my clothes. When I unexpectedly returned for something I forgot, I caught her, and she cried a river of apologies. I'm sorry, Rose, we've always been poor at home, wearing only worn clothes from my cousin. I've never worn anything this high-end, so I just thought. What's with the tears? Just because you're weak, you're right? And just because you haven't worn nice clothes, you can just take others' clothing? I sniffed my clothes, each one infected with a cheap perfume smell, and one even had a yellow stain, absolutely intolerable. I'm not the type to let things slide. It isn't the first time you've sneaked in to wear my clothes, right? You and your mom need to leave my house right now, but you'll pay for the damage. Simon instantly got defensive, jumping in front of her. Rose, you don't need to be so aggressive. You scared her to tears. I felt downright baffled. She cries because she did something wrong, and crying makes her right? Justifying messing with my clothes? It's all my fault. I was too naive, thinking Rose treated me like a sister. Don't be afraid, Simon told her, then frowned at me. Rose, you live in a dream world. Not everyone is born into comfort. Vivian's already pitiful enough. What's wrong with her wearing one of your dresses? I'll never forget Simon's eyes filled with disgust and lack of understanding back then. As if I were the villain in their little story, arrogant and notorious. Yeah, right. Anna cried begging for leniency after slapping Vivian twice, and my mom let it go due to the past, which was too lenient for such a major offense. Alice found out about it and snorted at Vivian's behavior, telling Simon to stay away from her. But I kept bumping into them together at school. Before all this, I had a crush on Simon, almost thought of him as my first love. Afterward, I couldn't wait to avoid him. Even if Simon agreed to marry me in the future, I'd totally flee the wedding. Luckily, I didn't have to. Vivian took care of that and stuck to this worthless dude. After the wedding, guests started leaving. William reached out to me, his ring finger shining. Let's go, my dear wife. I took his hand. We were in debate teams from different colleges, ran into each other several times, and I lost quite a few rounds to him. I used to hate him so much, dreamed about debating with him. Never thought I'd end up marrying him. Funny how things turn out. My future in-laws beamed behind us. Mom, hang on a sec. Simon came after our marriage with Vivian. Alice seemed to just remember Simon existed. Oh, you guys, if you want to be together, go ahead, no one's stopping you, she shrugged. Thank you, Auntie, Vivian said, eyes welling up again. Simon sighed deeply. Stop calling her Auntie, Simon said, when you're my wife, call her Mom. Vivian was about to speak up. Oh, please. I'm not having it, Alice's smile dropped. Simon's not my biological son, so whatever you two does is none of my business. No need to call me Mom. She took my hand and smiled at me. Plus, my only daughter-in-law is her, don't try and claim family ties. Vivian's face turned all kinds of colors. Simon pulled Vivian behind him, glaring at William with resentment. Since you found your real son, you gotta tell me where my real parents are, right? William, they'll be here soon to take you home. Hope flashed in Simon and Vivian's eyes. Yeah, William was dashing with sharp eyebrows and a noble air. Obviously, his family background had to match. Vivian nudged Simon, eyes full of hope. It's okay, Simon. I'll wait with you however long it takes. Your family will come soon. Laughs. She's probably thrilled, thinking Simon's real parents are loaded. William asked me, wife, wanna keep watching the drama or head home with me? Don't rush, watch the show with me. Just then, 2 cars pulled up. A sleek black Maybach and a slightly retro-looking green cab. They're here, Simon said, pulling Vivian toward the Maybach. But out of the Maybach came my family's driver, Larry. He walked right past them to my parents. Sir, ma'am, please get in the car. Past them like air. Cringe on their behalf. Alice pointed them in the right direction. Simon, your real parents are at the taxi. Out came a plainly dressed couple, mostly gray-haired, slightly hunched. There was a scrawny boy next to them who somewhat resembled Simon. They rushed to Simon, our son, we missed you so much, hugging him and crying. You must miss us too. How did we not notice they switched you as a baby? Should have known sooner. Simon let them hug him, stiffly. Vivian asked incredulously, you're really Simon's birth parents? Behind her, Simon's birth mom excitedly grabbed Vivian's hand. Yes, child, are you our son's girlfriend? Vivian forced a smile, yeah. Simon's mom stuffed a red plastic bag into Vivian's arms. Auntie, what's this? It's the eggs from our chickens at home. A little gift for you, she said. What? Fresh eggs? Really, it's okay, Auntie. Oh, dear, Auntie gave it to you, so take it. We're family now, don't be shy. I know city folks can't get free-range eggs, so I brought some. I felt like I should be moved, but it was more comical. I turned to look at William, but his face seemed icily indifferent. Like he didn't even know the 3 people there. When he noticed me looking, his gaze turned warmer, and he smiled, seen enough? Ready to go? Let's head home. Watching this too much gets dull. Martin told Simon, go with your real parents. We'll pack up your stuff and send it over later. His birth mom kept chatting with Vivian, when will you 2 register for the marriage? I'll help plan the wedding. Not sure yet, Vivian frowned slightly, by the way, ma'am, where do you live? Our home, back in the countryside. Vivian's voice changed, countryside? William and I headed home. After watching such a good show, I didn't hide my happiness, humming as I walked into the room. The French-style room was especially festive today. Behind me, the door shut with a thud. William took off his jacket, broad shoulders under a white shirt, tired? Not really, very excited. He chuckled, loosening his tie a bit. Yeah? Me too. Something about him was enticing. I swallowed hard. Why do I feel like we're excited about different things? First-time newlyweds have no clue what to do. I was pondering over it, thinking of bringing up our college days. Suddenly, my waist was embraced from behind. Rose, you've spent enough time on trivial things today. Now it's my turn, right? His breath stirred me up, my pulse quickened as I turned to speak, only to be silenced by his mouth. The kiss deepened slowly. After a while, he asked, ready for a shower? Yeah. I pretended to be calm and headed to the walk-in closet for pajamas. Yet, when I stepped into the bathroom, there stood William. This was hard to handle. You go ahead, I mumbled, but before I could turn, he tugged me towards him, and the bathroom door clicked shut, another kiss followed. He looked into my eyes, Rose, we're married now. I remembered him speaking eloquently on opposing debate teams, his arguments sharp and precise, all cool and composed. What was this switch? The night's long dialogues answered. The next morning, William suited up for work, while I was still snoozing. We got to bed way late, and now I could barely peel my eyes open. Love, I'm heading out. I mumbled an acknowledgement, vaguely sensing a kiss on my forehead. Slept till noon. Oddly enough, Simon's family reunion was on TV. Simon had a pained expression throughout. Yet the reporter commented, we can see from Simon's expression, he's deeply moved by reconnecting with his roots. He'd never been to a place like this, probably still in shock. His biological parents' house was a self-built 3-story in the countryside, surrounded by short buildings. There were about a dozen chickens fenced in by the door. Simon probably hadn't been to a place like this before, making his designer clothes stand out even more. With a frown, he told the camera, "Stop filming." But his dad said, "You silly kid, you get paid for the interview." The camera panned to Vivian, whose smile looked more like a grimace. Simon's mom held her hand and said, "This is my son's girlfriend. She's so pretty and doesn't mind that we don't have a house or car. Such a good kid." Simon added, "Vivian doesn't care about that, but I have my own house, car, and savings. I'd never let her be wronged." Vivian's expression softened. "I love him for who he is. His family doesn't matter to me." Then the show's narrator chimed in, saying how impressive it was to find a girl like Vivian who isn't materialistic in this day and age. This made both me and my mother-in-law chuckle. Simon's car, house, and credit cards are all from his adoptive parents. He thinks he's some big shot, but they've taken back everything, even the branch company they let him manage. Except for the Lamborghini he's still driving, they haven't gotten around to taking that. Alice laughed lightly, glad he's not my biological kid, or I'd already kicked him out. After so much time and money wasted on him, he turned out to be such a disappointment. After marrying William, his family gave us a huge mansion in a prime yet quiet city center location. When William and I got there, we saw two people standing at the gate. Turns out it's the famed lover Simon and his Vivian. I got out and walked over with William. "What are you two doing at my place?" Vivian timidly hid behind Simon, looking like I'd just scolded her. Simon's protective instinct kicked in. "What do you mean, your place? My mom gave me this house. I should be asking what you're doing here." The butler saw us coming and greeted us. Simon tried to pull Vivian inside, but the butler stopped them. "Sir, please don't trespass," he said calmly. "What do you mean, this house is mine? I was just here the other day. Don't make me fire you. This house no longer belongs to you. We've changed the locks. If you force your way in, that's trespassing, and you can't fire him." William replied coolly, then told the butler, "You've done a good job. I'll get you a raise later." Simon, having been treated like a young master for over 20 years, never faced such disrespect. He was dumbfounded. Vivian softly pleaded, looking helplessly at William and me, "Miss Rose, Mr. William, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to intrude." But William cut her off, "If you're really sorry, then leave." I didn't even need to intervene. I hooked my arm around William's and walked into the front courtyard. All Simon could do was watch us enter, leaving him and Vivian stuck outside the gate. There was a swing in the yard, and the sunny day made it perfect for swinging. Soon, Alice and Martin arrived. We had planned a meal in our new home. Simon hurried up to them, as if they were his lifeline. "Mom, Dad, you're here." He pointed at me, lounging on the swing and snacking on fruit. "This house was supposed to be for my wedding, but now I can't get in, and they've changed the locks." Alice frowned and said, "Why should you go in? This house was meant for my real son's wedding. You're not my son anymore, so why would you think you could stay?" Simon looked crushed. That's when Vivian spoke up, "Uncle, Aunt, how can you do this? He's been with you for over 20 years, and you've invested so much in him. Even without blood ties, there are feelings, right?" Alice responded, "Yes, we put effort into him, yet he managed the branch company so poorly, wasted money on women, and vanished without a trace. In hindsight, the time and money spent were a total waste." Simon bowed his head in shame, not a word left to say. He hadn't always been this useless, just a bit foolish. But by college, when his family wanted him to apply to a local school, he agreed but secretly accepted one far away, in Vivian City. Free from his adoptive parents' control, he indulged, slacking off in his studies until he became a total mess. Yet Alice and Martin, thinking of him as their son, gave him a branch company to manage upon graduation, and set strong staff to assist him. But he was hopeless, frequently disappearing for spontaneous trips with Vivian, thinking the family empire would always catch him. Alice eyed Vivian. You guys must be really in love. Vivian quickly nodded. True love means sticking together through hard times. This is a small test. Being together is what's most important, right? Alice turned to Simon. Besides, isn't your girlfriend not materialistic? So you don't need to worry about not having a house, car, or money. Finished, Alice walked over to me with a smile. Rose, I saw these 2 handbags while shopping earlier. Thought they'd suit you. See if you like them. Thanks, Mom. I took them gladly. Vivian stood by the gate, glaring at me, almost like she wanted to burn a hole through me. It suddenly reminded me of a high school gym test. Vivian and I were in the same class. She tripped right when I was about to pass her, scraping her knee pretty bad. But she told Simon, Rose didn't trip me on purpose, it's fine, Simon. Only someone as dumb as Simon would fall for her act, telling me all just to apologize so it could be forgotten. I didn't even bother explaining. I calmly walked up to her. She thought I was going to apologize. Her lips almost curled into a grin. It's really not. Instead, I slapped her clean across the face, and the crowd burst out laughing. Was that apology strong enough? I asked. I hit her so hard she was dazed. After a few seconds, she glared at me with hatred in her eyes but held back since Simon was there. Rose, you're just too much. That slap practically shattered Simon's heart. Rose, you're just unreasonable. That's school bullying. After that, Simon never spoke to me or came to my house again, just like she wanted. And I was more than happy about it. I couldn't stop smiling when I thought about how William helped me shut that bitch down today. Finally married a smart man who wouldn't be fooled by such cheap tricks. So after dinner, once we sent my in-laws off, I wrapped my arms around William's waist. He raised an eyebrow a bit. What's up? To reward you. I took the chance to kiss him as he looked down at me. His eyes paused for a second before he firmly held the back of my head, closing his eyes to deepen the kiss. Around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed on the bedside. I squinted at it. An unknown number flashed, but the caller hung up before I could answer. William was beside me, wearing silver-framed glasses, reading a book. His profile was sharp, and his lashes long like raven feathers. Gotta admit, this man's energy is off the charts. Who was calling? No idea, don't know them. After a while, sensing my gaze, he looked at me. Why do you keep staring at me? You've got such stamina. That's good stamina to you? He smirked. I caught a hint of teasing. If not for worrying about you being tired. I covered his restless mouth. He lifted my hand and kissed the back gently. Back when you argued with me, you didn't hold back. Didn't you ever think I could be your future wife? He gazed at me, his eyes showing some unclear emotion. If I lost to you, would I have left such a mark on you? Of course, back then, I even asked around about him. His eyes crinkled in amusement. You asked about me? I mumbled, yeah, Mr. Big Shot. We went to the same college. It's hard not to hear about a superstar like you. He was always so aloof and cocky, always busy either making money or making more money. Despite that, he topped the department, even started developing software and founding a company with classmates. Why were you so driven back then? After a silent pause, he asked, you really want to know? Yeah. He hesitated, like deciding whether to share. I sat up, hugging him, leaning on his chest. Why, can't tell your wife? William, feels like I'm playing victim if I say. All these years, William's foster parents hardly looked after him. In middle school, they sent him to stay with distant relatives who ran a small restaurant. He helped in exchange for meals and school fees. He had to earn all his living expenses himself in high school and college. During college, his foster parents kept finding excuses to ask him for money for household expenses. He used to think it was because they were poor and didn't know how to show love, which was why they neglected him so much, until their second son was born. He saw how they cherished the child. It hit him that not being loved meant just that, no weird reasoning behind it. Once he got that, he hardly ever went home, as there was no welcome for him. Though his foster parents didn't stop asking for money, nearly 90% of the costs for their old home and land came from William. No wonder he worked so hard back then. I could feel anger brewing. Your foster parents were awful. I seriously think they knew all along you weren't their real kid. Otherwise, how could they be so heartless, never caring about you? Never mind that, you have a wife now, I'll take care of you. I joked, a mix of playfulness and sincerity, patting his head. He hugged me suddenly. Lowered his head, resting in the crook of my neck. Let out a long sigh. You're saying this, Rose. Elsewhere, Simon was dragging Vivian along, looking lost on the street. Let's go eat. He was used to spending big, and now he only had a few $1,000 left. The cards he used freely were cancelled. Reluctantly, he decided to head to a small diner. Vivian frowned. I don't want to eat here. What do you want then? The seafood place you promised me last time. Before, he would have taken her there without a second thought, but now he didn't have the funds. The thought of going back to that house, that cramped space so different from his old place, left him suffocating. I'm low on cash now, I'll take you another time. Vivian didn't speak for a while, then she suddenly picked up a call. Vivian, my mom called. She wants me to come home for dinner, so I won't be eating with you. Need a ride? Your car got taken back, how are you gonna give me a ride? I'll hail a taxi for you. Was it just him, or did Vivian's tone sound a bit annoyed? It unsettled him. He hugged Vivian. Vivian, you're all I have now. You won't leave me, will you? We should get married once I sort out my documents, alright? Vivian didn't hug him back for a long time. Then said, Simon, do you really think you're ready to get married right now? Simon added, I'm 25 now, I'm old enough to marry. I don't mean age. Do you have a house or a car? Do you even have money for the wedding? Vivian, I always thought you weren't into material stuff. Simon sensed something unfamiliar about her, even though she was all about when he'd marry her a few days ago. Sorry, Simon, I just feel like life is hard for you now. Marrying you would only burden you more. I don't want to drag you down. I better go. Turns out, she was thinking about him. If it were that spoiled brat Rose, she'd curse him out instead. With that thought, he called some close friends for money. But they were either busy or ignoring him, even though they used to compete to hang out with him. He wandered around, feeling defeated. He didn't want to admit he belonged back home, nor could he waste money on a hotel. Finally, he took a long, bumpy bus ride back. He almost coughed up a lung getting off, but the moment he stepped through the door, his biological parents' first words were, "You're back. We need a new fridge, think we should get one now? Buy one if you want." Why ask me? Well, it's kinda pricey, and we're short 2,000. Can you? Come on, seriously? He just got back and they're already asking for cash. I have no money. Simon didn't hide his annoyance, gave them 500, and went straight to his room. The bed was anything but soft, making sleep a struggle. He stayed home in a daze for a few days, just ordering delivery and scrolling videos. Soon enough, his balance dwindled from 4 figures to 3. No new messages on his phone. Vivian hadn't reached out either. He called her. Why haven't you reached out? She said, Simon, let's not see each other for a while. My mom doesn't want me to meet you. Why? Simon sat up as if struck by lightning. My mom says if you want to marry me, forget about the wedding and the house and car for now. You can't even come up with the 880,000 yuan bride price she wants. She won't let me go out to see you and wants us to break up. The last time he visited Vivian's house, her mom couldn't stop raving about how lucky Vivian was to have him as a boyfriend. She was so enthusiastic. No matter what, I'll figure out the bride price, Vivian. Just wait for me. I won't let you. I heard my mom coming and said, I'll talk to you later. The call ended, and Simon was tearing at his hair in frustration. He was at the end of his rope. Just the thought of finding a job made his head ache. He'd been sending out resumes online, but almost all responses left him on read. Plus, to be honest, he wasn't interested in those salaries. He used to spend way more than that just on a meal. I thought this was all over. But nope, there was more. I got a call from an unknown number. It was Simon's voice on the other end. Rose, sorry to call so late, he said, surprisingly gently. What's up? Nothing big, just wondering if you could lend me some money. I said, are we that close? You've got hands and feet, and you're a college grad. Getting a job and earning money would kill you? Finding a job takes time. We've known each other for years. Could you help me out temporarily? I'm really stuck. You know how everything costs money. Sorry, I didn't know. Didn't you say I wasn't in touch with reality? Remember? He paused for half a second. How's reality treating you now? Rose, can't you, that was years ago. You're still holding on to it? Simon suddenly dropped his high horse, pleading, Rose, please, I'm begging. Don't give me that. Work it out yourself, you're an adult. I hung up. Who is he trying to play the emotional card with? Back when he blindly defended Vivian against me, he didn't mention how we grew up together. And now, come on. He actually called me back, relentlessly. I blocked his number. So annoying. I went shopping with my girlfriends in the afternoon. Since William's company was on the way, I told the driver to stop by to pick him up after work. To my surprise, Vivian was standing at the building's entrance. She was holding something, seemingly waiting for someone. I sat in the car, watching her silently. Soon, William came out, followed by his assistant. Vivian quickly fixed her hair, put on a practiced smile, and walked towards him. William, can I have a minute? She took out a pink lunchbox from her bag. I made this myself, hoping you can forgive our behavior last time. No other meaning. It was lunchtime, and her actions were drawing attention. Delivering a meal like that suggests a pretty close relationship. William didn't even spare her a glance. No need. His assistant stepped in, Miss, please respect yourself. Our CEO is about to have lunch with his wife. Please don't do anything that could be misunderstood. People seemed to start whispering. Why make me sound like that? I didn't mean it that way. Vivian's strategy, play the victim, gain sympathy. But it clearly didn't work on William. I stepped out of the car, slowly. Honey. Every eye turned to me. Wow, so this is the CEO's wife. She's stunning. They're so perfect together, aren't they? William naturally extended his hand to me. That icy demeanor melted into a smile, completely replacing his poker face. Seeing this, Vivian made a hasty retreat. In her panic, she didn't notice and bumped into a delivery guy. She was fine, but the food container she was holding smashed onto the pavement. There was a loud clang as the food scattered everywhere. Inside were 2 bacon slices cut into big heart shapes and a card with her contact info. Talk about intentions, everyone could see through that act. Someone from the crowd chuckled, heart-shaped bacon? Who gives her the nerve? Vivian, frustrated, snapped at the delivery guy, watch where you're going. Ma'am, I was riding along fine, and you just popped up. How's that my fault? I strolled away, arm in arm with William. I've watched this drama a million times, but she hasn't learned. Sticking with the same playbook, it's almost hilarious. In the afternoon, I got a new hairstyle and headed over to Alice's place. We lived close by, so it was just a few minutes' drive. Even though it hadn't been long since we hung out, she got me a bunch of stuff. I saw this dress and thought it would look amazing on you, so I got it. And these bags go perfectly with the dress we got last time. See if you like them. Absolutely love them, thanks, Mom. Alice and I have very similar tastes. If she thinks something looks good, I'm usually into it too. Suddenly, there was a commotion outside. This is the place. Simon and his parents had shown up. I frowned. Simon's dad, looking stern, said, "We need to discuss something with you." Alice responded, "What's there to discuss between us?" Out of courtesy, Alice invited them into the living room and asked them to sit. Simon's mom started, "You know, Simon is getting married soon. How about we talk about his wedding?" What does his wedding have to do with Alice, I thought. Alice patted my hand reassuringly and said to them, "Go on. You know we're strapped for cash. We've got only the one house, can't pay the dowry, or buy a car or house due to financial constraints. So, we're hoping you can cover it. Simon's called you his parents for over 20 years. You've got wealth, so it shouldn't be a big deal for you to fund it." The nerve of this woman. Alice calmly asked, "Anything else?" "We don't want to trouble you with the details. Just a few million would do. More is welcome. We'll handle the rest." I couldn't believe it. People with such gall exist? Simon kept his head down the whole time, obviously agreeing with his parents. Martin, who'd been around the block in the business world, just let out a sarcastic laugh. "Your son's getting married, huh? And you want us to foot the bill? How do you come up with that? Asking for millions like it's no big deal." Simon's real dad said, "I read in the papers that your company's making billions every year. This small amount isn't hard for you, is it? Plus, you raised him for so long, why not see it through and help him out?" Simon, who's been silent for quite a while, finally spoke up, "This is a one-time thing. We won't bother you again." Martin glanced at him, saying, "You do know we raised him too, right? We've never asked for him to pay back all the money and years spent. Consider yourselves lucky. We're not wasting more money. We spent a lot on William. You think he's doing well now without our effort?" "What effort?" "Advise me," I interrupted. "What effort did you put in?" "Well, we just want the best for him, teaching him independence," Simon's mom stammered. I smiled, "So how come you didn't let your own son exercise independence? And now you're just asking for money, huh? He's been freeloading for 20 years, maybe it's time for his independence." They had no answer for that. Alice chimed in, "You're not aware of this, but I've already reported this to the police." They stood up quickly, panicking. "Why would you call the cops for something like this?" "If you're not going to leave asking for money," Alice replied, "we can definitely press charges for extortion. As for the police report, you probably know why." "We don't know anything about breaking the law," his mom insisted, her voice shaky. Simon, on the other hand, got curious, "Calling the police? What for?" With a pale face, his mom said, "We only came to ask for some money. Since you're so heartless, forget it. But why accuse us like this?" Then, the police showed up. Alice and Martin had informed the authorities long ago about the mix-up at the hospital. Today, the police confirmed that Simon's mom orchestrated the switch. The nurse involved turned out to be her relative. She swapped William and Simon on Simon's mom's request. This action wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. The police found the nurse, and she confessed. Simon's mom never expected her attempt to get money would end this way. The cops took them away, leaving our home quiet once more. I think about all they did to William and get angry. When William came home for dinner, I kept piling his plate with food. Alice and Martin were all smiles. As for Vivian, I don't really know what happened to her. My time's too precious to waste on her drama. I only heard about her through social media when she appeared in the news. Turns out, she was the star of a scene in a fine dining restaurant that got flipped over by the real wife of the man she was with. It went viral online. Simon found out and had a big fight with her in public. People captured it and shared it online, turning their lives into an internet spectacle. The video also brought up Simon's identity reveal. Vivian went from saying she only cared about Simon himself, not his family's wealth, to calling him a broke rural guy she wouldn't have bothered with if he wasn't from a wealthy family. The irony was hard to miss. Netizens summed it up: one is foolish, the other is shameless. They should just lock themselves away. Simon's mess is of his own making, and Vivian's time might be coming. Meanwhile, I was too busy enjoying a honeymoon with William to care much. The chaos surrounding them was just gossip to pass the time. Living our own lives was what mattered. We strolled hand in hand on the beach at night. We took photos at beautiful places. Being newlyweds in love was wonderful. A sudden rain shower caught us at the beach. As it got heavier, we went back to the hotel. In the room, he dragged me to the bathroom, and we showered for a long time. It reminded me of college when I walked through a basketball court in the rain and saw William there. His shirt got soaked and stuck to his body, showing off his muscles. I stopped in amazement when he noticed me. His clear, calm eyes registered surprise, and he blushed a little as he looked away. "Nice physique, William," I teased before he walked away without looking back. "Come here, let me dry your hair," he'd say now. I recalled those times fondly and let him. He's gotten quite good at blow-drying my hair. Afterward, he tucked me into bed, and we kissed. I held him lightly, feeling his warmth. "So, did you have a crush on me in college?" "You turned red when you saw me," I teased. "I never blushed," he protested with a smile. I described the scene, and he remembered, smiling with a tenderness that seemed to glow. "Should I ask you why you remembered me shirtless for so long? Were you thinking about me all along?" "No way," I denied. His lips brushed my ear. "Really?" I surrendered, smiling. Okay, maybe I was thinking of you." As I drifted to sleep later, I heard him whisper, "I liked you back then. Now you have me." Over the years, his indifference was his armor, his aloof nature a mask. Meeting the girl he liked, he knew they were worlds apart. He had youth but no money. He wanted to earn more before he could even think about being with her. His love was quiet but real. He just hoped she remembered his name, hoped to leave a deeper impression. That's why he joined the debate team, even if it didn't interest him. But now Rose was by his side. She was his wife. He loved her deeply.